Hello and welcome to Ranked Ramble. We're going back to this old gem of a series where I'm going to ramble about stuff that's happening in the Pioneer meta and with Arena in general, and we'll talk forward. So, for the first return to Ranked Rambles, I've decided we will have a quick discussion in relation to the previous banned and restricted announcement. Now, there was no changes announced, as is pretty good indication. Pioneer is honestly very healthy. There's a lot of diversity. However, we did notice in our weekly videos where we review challenges that the sudden announcement that they were happy with the meta has led to a massive return of Izzet Phoenix. I believe this might have been caused by the fact that prior to the BNR announcement, with the potential of Phoenix having not necessarily the marked for death or the sword of Damocles above it, but the potential that Phoenix was going to suffer a nerf, people were afraid that it might be similar to what happened to Mono Green Devotion, where Khan got removed because that really pushed the deck over the edge, and then it just dropped out of existence, which is hilarious because there's actually a Mono Green matchup in this video. It's the last match where our opponent decides to rope concede because I assembled a Malia combo. The funniest thing is, I hadn't even fully triggered it, but they still just, I don't know. It was very strange. Now, yes, as I said before, the return of Izzet Phoenix appears to be, I think, players returning to it as opposed to just trying out of the stuff. Now, what do I think is going to happen from here? I think Izzet is still on the highest likeliness of a chopping block, but if it is going to receive a nerf, it's going to lose probably the Pickpocket Prankster. The Pickpocket Prankster encapsulates everything brilliant about the adventure mechanic. It is a mill card that can mill you to power up your own Phoenix deck. It is also a resilient creature with a good stat line of 1 free flying, vigilance, that can help you block and stabilize. I think this will be the piece that would eat the ban if something does happen eventually. Now that is primarily just going to be if we do not see a huge adjustment in the meta right now. I'm not sure if we'll see that going forward, but after my experience with the deck, I think that I would like to see Lightning Axe banned. And the reason for this is, I think the 5 damage is very impressive. But if you look at it, it's primarily used by Phoenix players as just a way to dump the Arclight. I think removing that and forcing them players to play like Izzet Charms or other loot effects that aren't as prominent of a stabilization tool as Lightning Axe would definitely weaken the deck without destroying the deck. They could still have their nuts start. But then, it might not. We'll have to see what happens. The real reason I actually started to start with this topic is I was going to go through more of a breakdown of how I've been playing my NIF deck. But I started to notice, after I did my weekly review video of the top 8s, I delved deeper and noticed Izzet Phoenix is starting to mainboard Ashiok as much as some lists I've seen 2 to 3 copies of it. For those who don't know, the Ashiok is the uncommon board Spark Planeswalker with the static effect of players' spells and abilities your opponent's control can't let them search their library. -1, mill 4 cards, target player mills 4 cards, then exile each opponent's graveyard, 5 loyalty. This card is in here for one reason. Now, I have spoke with my local Phoenix player, and he says it's primarily there to stuff both the Phoenix matchup and the Amalia matchup with the static to not search the graveyard. But then when I asked him about it main deck, he goes, I've never thought about that, but it's probably the most efficient way, given how often you run into Phoenix mirrors. And I'm just like, are you serious? They're like, yeah, it is what will tip the balance in your favor and let you use it. Now, that's not a damning indictment of anything, it's a true statement, but it is very concerning where you are pre-game metaing for prominent decks, which I think is very concerning. Now, we won't just rag on Phoenix here. Like I said, that might just be a case that we need to see adjustments. As we see here, you'll see in this video here, I screw up against a Phoenix because I absolutely refuse to properly meta against it. I basically keep a very bad hand to the final game and lose. But let's talk about the other prominent decks. First off, we'll talk about the Rakdos Vampires lists. Now, this is pretty much usurped Rakdos midrange to the point where you really don't even see Rakdos midrange at all anymore. If you run into a Rakdos deck, it is purely vampires. And there's a very good reason for that. Vein Ripper dropping on turn 3 is really, really crazy. But we are seeing meta adjustments for this. We've seen a lot of people bring in Pick Your Poison. We've seen the return of Liliana in the mono black decks. The edicts are coming back in force to deal with the Vein Rippers. Now, is Rakdos Vampires broken? No. It functions very much like the Rakdos midrange deck if it doesn't have the insane Vein Ripper start. Now, I personally think that I really thought for a while that this was an inferior version to the original Rakdos midrange deck. I thought that a lot of the success was coming from players just not being prepared for it. You know, a meta call that we didn't have a lot of edict effects to answer the Vein Ripper, which might be true. However, I test played it myself, a version of it on Modo, and after playing it, I was convinced that it is predominantly better. But I think what I've realized is happening, particularly on Arena, and this is a PSA to anyone who's playing this deck or picking this deck up, you've got to run it like a traditional, well, the way I run combo decks. You can't go all in on the Sorin Vein Ripper plan. That is a nice bonus if you get it. You know, dropping a Vein Ripper on turn 4 or 5 is still just as lethal as dropping it on turn 3. And dropping it into an empty board will still be as relevant. Now, should you throw away a hand that has the Sorin Vein Ripper combo in it for a more stable hand? No. There are going to be games where that will be enough to win you the game, but you shouldn't play straight to that. That is your that is your B plan. Your A plan is discard, removal, deploy threats, and then go. Now, in plan B, that's discard, removal, Sorin, Vein Ripper. Don't think that you have to have Sorin to win the match. You will win just as many from a traditional mid-range grind than using the Vein Ripper turn 3 play. That being said, we're seeing adjustments for the meta of this deck going forward, so just be prepared, particularly after they've sideboarded that a Vein Ripper might not be as game-ending as you hoped. But it is still putting in events, so I think it's going to be a very strong deck going forward. Finally, we need to talk about Abzan Amelia combo. And I need to shut a window because the dogs out there have, I don't know, seen a squirrel or gone nuts. So, Amalia combo, the deck that I'm jamming into my Niv list, but as you'll see in this video here with the match against Temur Fireball, it still has legs. Now, it's an incredibly resilient combo deck we've seen. For those of you who don't know, the deck works around the idea that Amalia has the ability, well, you've seen my deck tech, but I'll explain it here. Amalia has the ability that whenever you gain life, you explore. Then if her power becomes 20, she blows up all of the creatures, and Walgorf Walker has the ability that whenever you explore, you gain free life and put a counter on it. So These two together with an Explorer life gain trigger let you basically make a 20/20 Amalia, gain 60 plus life, and, well, 60-ish life, and swing for lethal. The rest of the deck is built around that. There's other ways to win with Dina Soul Steeper to turn the life gain into drain. It kind of honestly feels like an old school Soul Sister shell. And their finisher, if they don't have that, is the Aether Flux Reservoir. And aside from that, they just run Return to the Ranks to return their board in the event you remove it. Court of Calling and Collected Company to dig for the pieces. It's a low to the ground, aggression, aggro combo deck. It's very fun and very powerful. It is not oppressive in the format, but there is the big issue that it does technically, this deck, have a turn free. Luminarch Veteran into Amalia into a Wildgrowth Walker is turn free kill if your opponent doesn't have removal or interaction. Now that's the Magical Christmas Land crazy draw that can happen sometimes. However, weighing it up, it is possible to happen. Now, the Banned and Restricted directly addressed Amalia, saying that they like the combo deck. Now, we know that with playing Boros Heroic, there's some very interesting interaction where if you make the Wildgrowth Walker indestructible, the Amalia loop never ends and the game ends in a draw. It's a very cool interaction, but not the most prominent. And I think a lot of people have dropped that, because there was a point where people were running sideboard stuff to make creatures indestructible, not to survive the Amalia board wipe, but to put Amalia in the loop and lock the game. Yeah, that's the point we're at. Now, I don't think that Amalia is bannable at the moment, but I do think that we could see something go from the deck if we have another BNR, because it's kind of settled this is the S tier combo deck. Now, there should be a combo deck 100%, there should be a creature-based deck, there should be a spell slinger, there should be a mid-range, a burn. A diverse format will have everything. I think what will probably happen with this deck is they will take some of its inevitability away. I could see them removing the Aether Flux Reservoir, or potentially maybe banning Return to Ranks. That would be unnecessary. I think Aether Flux Reservoir will probably eat the ban here, if we get to that point. I don't think we will, though. I don't think the deck really truly needs it right now. But as it currently stands, it is a very fun deck and has some very cool interactions. One thing I think a lot of people have got to remember is if you can unmoored Ego or slaughter games out the Amalias, their deck just runs like an old school Soul Sisters deck, as long as you can basically, well, they don't really have a lot of other things. You just answer their bigger threats, you'll probably outgrind them in consistency. Now, all of those things said, Pioneer is really fun right now. It is honestly really good. There's a ton of viable decks. There's strategies from straight up combo to straight up aggro to straight up mid-range. Everything is viable and potential to go on and look for. Now, that being said, we've sung Pioneer's praises. I should address the bad thing in the room. Wizards. What this swear word is going on? We are still not at a full Pioneer on Arena. This client, I'm playing Explorer in this video here. This client is amazing. It has issues. It has an economy that requires another 40-minute round video to go into full details about, which I will not put in this video. But this is a great client to build your build this format from. This format that is starting to recover after literally this is the format that little format that could. It got domed by a worldwide pandemic. It got locked into a combo hell that nearly killed it. And it's come back with some of the best gameplay we've had in years. And your first priority is, let's put Modern Horizons free on Arena. What? You tell you an entire set of Modern Horizons stuff programmed into Arena with unknown mechanics and things that we didn't have on Arena that are being dropped in here to support up other formats. You couldn't have just done Pioneer Horizons or Pioneer Masters and put in the missing cards. We've had 3 bonus sheets, 4 bonus sheets now, that have had random spells, you know, the big score sheet, not the big score sheet, sorry, the crime sheet. And you tell me you couldn't have put some of the missing Pioneer places there. We got an Abrupt Decay finally, but it took us like 20... You know, it took us all of this time. And this is, obviously I'm ranting because Bring to Light is still not on the client. But you want to give us a full Modern Horizon set. For a Timeless format, which honestly is trash. I'm sorry if you enjoy Timeless. It's basically... Force of Will-less Legacy. It's basically there are decks that just do what they want to do. And there's no stopgap for stopping them because there's no counterplay to them, because there's a huge imbalance between the threats and the answers. And yeah, but we want to support that by adding in the entirety of Modern Horizons free. And I'm sure I'll play some historic stuff with the Modern Horizons cards for a laugh. Maybe I'll update Saheeli Kitten in a cool way. But Wizards, come on. Pioneer is... getting there. You're getting... MTGO is doing it right. They have 1 million challenges going off every week. I'm having to shrink down my top 8 summaries every week because more and more challenges are firing as more people are playing. Your events are, you know, this is going to be your premier format. I'm sorry to say. You've lost a ton of Modern players who just don't like the rotation of Modern right now. And they are coming this way to Pioneer. Please support them. Please get your act together and get this on your client. We are so close. And now I think more than ever, we really need to push it because Niv to Light is top 8ing and winning challenges, smaller challenges, but not the main ones. It is now the 3rd most played deck on MTGO. Even if you then include the other Niv to Light, well, the light variants like Omnath to Light, there's so much here. And most of these decks are extended standard decks which ran through Arena. It's primed to fire off and go on this client. Please support it, Wizards. Anyway, that's my ranked ramble for this week. Please enjoy the rest of the video. Let me know what you think about the current state of Pioneer. Do you think any of the decks need bans? Do you think Wizards will ever fully bring Pioneer to MTG Arena? Or do you think we're just going to stay on MTGO with the 20-year-old client that somehow is doing more for this format than Wizards' billion-dollar cash cow? Signing out.